And welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And today I'm on a mission to find the best theist in the world. I'm on a mission.
Good luck.
So I got my two seasoned vets over here, two atheists, two hardline, militant. I'm just kidding.
We're militant.
Militant atheists. Oh, no, I'm joking.
What kind of show is this?
Sorry about that. Okay, all right. But here's the deal.
Starting over.
Honestly, though, I want to hear some opinions out there. I want to fish the chat a little bit. I want to hear some. I don't care if you're a Christian or a pagan or a Neoplatonist, or maybe you made up your own theory. Maybe you're the next Nobel Prize winner that's going to prove theism.
I'll bet.
Whoever it is, whatever it is, I want to get it from you. I want you guys to either if you want to drop a super chat to get your opinion out there, that would be great, because that would support me, and that's how I support myself, and that's how I support this channel. Or maybe we can jump on here, and I'll send the link for the StreamYard if you want to be face to face with the other side. If you want to convert these guys. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, we're gonna have some fun with that. And obviously, when the super chat pops up, they skip the line and we pause everything, and they get to voice their opinion on the matter. So
Super chats are greatly appreciated.
Super chats are greatly appreciated. Yes, I'm gonna probably put that on the bottom of the screen pretty soon. But before we even get into that, I want to promote my boy Derrick, and this is one of my favorite channels. He just released a video today. I'm just gonna play a nice little segment of it if you guys don't mind. And so this is from Derrick's channel, and it's the Jesus legend borrows from Romulus. And I'm not kidding. You laid it out in here. So I skipped ahead a little bit just to give a nice highlight, but I'm not going to give too much away because you got to watch the video yourself. So here it is.
We can't hear it.
Oh, shoot.
You're not sharing it the right way.
Okay. Hold on. I'll fix it.
You're fired.
I'll fix it. There you go. How about this? You hear it?
Nope. You're not sharing it right. So go down to present.
Oh, man.
Click present.
Yeah.
Click share screen.
Yeah.
Go to Chrome tab and then
I was doing that window.
One. Yep.
All right. Okay.
And make sure you have share tab audio checked off. So it should be.
Okay.
Violent thunderstorms suddenly arose and enveloped him in a cloud, after which he was no longer seen on earth. The prevailing belief was that he had been snatched away to heaven, and he was thereafter held the son of a god, compared to Romans 1:4. It was rumored by some that the senators had torn him limb from limb. The grief caused by Romulus's disappearance was lifted by a report from a most trusted witness, Proculus Julius, as he says, "At break of dawn today, the father of this city suddenly descended from heaven and appeared to me. Whilst thrilled with awe, I stood rapt before him in deepest reverence, praying that I might be pardoned for gazing upon him. Go, he said, tell the Romans that it is the will of heaven that my Rome should be the head of all the world." Similarly, in Ovid, in Fasti, the sun vanished and rising clouds obscured the sky, and a heavy shower of torrential rain fell. Then it thundered, then the sky split by lightning. All fled, and the king rose to the stars behind his father's horses. There was mourning, senators were falsely charged with murder, and perhaps that belief might have stuck in people's minds. But Julius Proculus was traveling from Alba Longa with the moon shining and having no need of a torch, when suddenly the hedge to his left moved and shook, so that he drew back a step, his hair bristling.
All right. I don't want to give too much away. I want you guys to go and get the video, go watch the video, go subscribe. Links in the description, so you don't got to look far to find it. You don't got to search them. Go right in my description, click on that link, and hit that subscribe button. And his content is fire. It's fire stuff. Also, and I just wanted to comment on that, because I was reading on Romulus myself. Now, I'm not going to say there was a Trinity going on in Rome. I'm not going to say that, because Trinity is specific. Trinity means they're all the same deity, like confined to one thing. But there definitely was a triad. There definitely was three major deities in Rome: Romulus, Jupiter, and was it the Was it Venus? It was one of the goddesses. I can't remember which one. Or maybe it was it was Dia Roma. That's what it was, which was like a Roman version of Athena. And they had this triad in all the temples. You knew that these three gods were the main three gods. So I'm not going to say that this is they had a trinity. It's the same thing. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it's interesting how you had this father, son, mother triad that you see often in times in a lot of pagan religion, especially with the Neoplatonists, with the triads. Anyway, that's a whole other topic, but I just wanted to comment on the video. I think it's a really good video, and people should check it out. And yeah, definitely check out that link in the description. There was a super chat real quick. I just want to get to that before, and then I'm going to open up. Whoops. That's a little echo there. All right, here. The link is the StreamYard is now pinned to the top. I'm going to get that going now so we can get these challengers ready to go. Chat GPT, thank you for the super chat. I'm a radical materialist. The spiritual realm doesn't exist at all. No ghosts, no gods, jinn, ghouls, or spirits, holy or otherwise. Boom. Laying it down on you theists out there. Anyone going to respond to that? You're just going to take that? You're just going to let somebody just dump all over you? Like, come on. Who's going to respond to that?
that one hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Chat GPT, though, that's a good comment. So we were in the ancient world. If we were sitting there, and let's say it's 350 BCE or 300 BCE. Alexander's often, or 320 BC. Alexander's often he's conquering Persia. We're sitting in Athens and we're debating. You would be the Epicurean. You'd be the material. You'd say it's all atoms and void. It ain't nothing. And then and all the other guys would be the Platonists would be like, no, how dare you say that? There's forms. You have a perfect form. It's in heaven. And it's waiting.
Yeah.
So you have to. So I'm waiting for who are the Platonists? Where are you guys at? Who believes in other realms? I want to hear from you guys. But also, I very welcome these atheists that jump on with their opinions like this just now. It also helps support me. Stop Scamming Man is in the house. So far, we have no challengers yet, so I'm just going to keep reading. Stop Scamming Man. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It's always good to see you in the chat. The early 3rd century bio of Apollonius, titled Life of Apollonius of Tyana by Flavius Philostratus, something I've actually read myself, by the way, is available on YouTube in audiobook form. It's pretty interesting. Wow. I did not know that. It's good to know. I might check that out.
Yeah.
I'm a big
notice that Philostratus begins his gospel, so to speak, in a very similar way to Luke, in the way that he begins his Dear Theophilus. I talked to this is coming from ministers and eyewitnesses of the word, yada yada yada. Philostratus is employing the same technique in the life of Apollonius. That's not an argument that anyone's borrowing from anyone else. It's just this was part of the cultural milieu.
Yeah. Also, another comment, another thing I want to say about life of Apollonius, because he was called the Neo-Pythagorean by Flavius Philostratus, and so you're thinking Neo-Pythagorean, he's probably like super metaphysical. He's probably all about like worshiping and doing rites. But actually, there's a passage. It's right off the bat. It's early in the book where he's talking to one of his students, and the student is sick, and the student's like, "How come I'm not being healed by Asclepius? I'm doing all the rites. I'm doing everything you told me to do. I'm doing all the secret magic words." And Apollonius of Tyana, just an amazing response, says, "Yeah, but did you stop drinking wine and eating full bellies of food every day?" He's like, "You got to meet Asclepius halfway. You can't just ask Asclepius to heal you. You got to start making yourself healthy." So you see that like this rational approach to Pythagoreanism. I love it. It'd be cool if you see that more often, but
my dad used to tell me stuff like, if you go lock yourself in the closet and pray for food, you're going to starve to death.
Right.
God is not going to feed you. Right. And I'm like, what? He's like, you have to go and make your hot dog, whatever you make. And he gave the hot dog as an analogy. And I was like, but God could do anything he wants. I was this little magical thinking Christian.
Yeah. Oh, there's a challenger, Roku Nico. I'm going to get to you in 1 second. I see you down there. I'm just going to finish off these last 2 super chats, and then you're ready. And then The stage is yours. Finn Jake says, hey, I just want to say I don't know 628 tau and cosine 628, 620, 628 and 26,222 in TSM 63 radians, 539 cosines. I have no idea what's going on.
I was just telling Derrick this earlier, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you for the super chat, but I have no idea what you just said.
I don't either, but thank you.
I was just explaining it to you.
I know, but I didn't understand it.
It might make perfect sense for all we know, but you might be the next Nobel Prize winner for all we know. But I just don't. I have no idea. You lost me after the cosines. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. Constellation Pegasus. All three of you are idiots. Need to get into a Kingdom Hall and support Jehovah's only organization on Earth before Armageddon arrives. I cannot believe you three. Armageddon is right around the corner.
We're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness right now.
Well, we'll go right after this. We'll go to that Kingdom Hall, and maybe I'll wear pants, and maybe I won't.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that super chat, Constellation Pegasus. Appreciate you. Last one, and then we're getting to the Challenger. Inspired one, 999. It's 666 upside down. Oh. How can some believe there was a guy, Jesus, but not magical, when nothing was written outside of the Bible? No real people that can be confirmed ever mentioned Jesus in independent writings. Well, if you mean no one independent writings in the time he was alive, then yeah. But later on, people talk. You could say the same thing about Socrates. You could say the same thing about Pythagoras. You could say the same thing about a lot of people in history. People don't. Writing was something that, like, really, it was an expensive thing. Like, to get papyrus or to get tablets honed in, or the common person didn't just start writing things down like we have notebooks today. You got to remember that. But this is a whole nother topic for another day. I mean, unless you want to jump in here,
it's really kind of a mythicist approach, really. And
yeah.
That
I'm not saying mythicism is impossible. I'm not saying that we figured out.
No, I mean, mythicism could be true. But at the end of the day, we're weighing out when I read Paul saying Jesus is born of the son of David, descended of the seed of David. He's born of a woman and things like that. That this is just a Jewish, it's a Jewish name commonly used to describe someone who is a mortal, became a human, a man.
Yeah, and I love talking about this topic. So
but I mean, this is a different topic than.
And I will say, we were just talking about Apollonius. Our primary source on Apollonius is Philostratus's Life of Apollonius, where he is portrayed as a magical figure. Yet we're pretty certain there was a historical Apollonius because we have at least one of his writings on sacrifices. So just because someone is portrayed as divine or magical doesn't mean that they didn't exist. And that's why you have to be careful with this argument.
Right. Pythagoras was speaking to animals like Dr. Dolittle. He was
we wouldn't know John the Baptist exists, at least not early attestation, apart from the one mention in Josephus, other than the Gospels. And, we what are you going to do with that? I mean, are those mentions interpolated? Did John the Baptist exist or not? There's all sorts of reasoning behind why I would approach this and think there was definitely a guy. Yeah. And I say definitely, not meaning, 100%. I'm saying it makes the most sense to me out of the whole data. Even if there wasn't, to me, what I'm seeing makes the most sense here. So I could be wrong.
But I cling to a historical Jesus because I have a strong emotional drive to want there to be a guy.
That's what I keep saying.
You're an apologist.
And I hate getting called out on that. It's embarrassing. I'm pretty much.
That's what I keep saying. Like, why do people think I'm like biased towards historicism? When you look at my content, you think I'm biased to Christianity? Anyways, listen, Nico's been waiting patiently. He hasn't said a word. He's been
awesome.
Quiet. So I really appreciate that, Roku. The floor is yours. Give us your argument.
Okay. But before I bring you guys back into the fold, can I say something?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys are aware about this, but there's a letter, I think it was written around 50 AD from a Syriac Stoic philosopher who writes a letter to his son, and then he mentions the wise man who's a Jew who got crucified.
Right. Yeah. There's people who debate on if it's about Jesus or not. It could be. He doesn't actually say Jesus though. which is to me that's kind
Yeah.
of a breaker. But I do know what you're talking about. The guy's name is I forgot the. Do you remember the name?
Bar something.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. There are like Gary Habermas is all over that. Gary Habermas. They're talking about Jesus. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. It could be, but it doesn't say Jesus, and I just it's that's my deal breaker. But I get what you're saying. That's a good point.
It wouldn't make any difference, honestly, one way or the other in terms of the conclusions that
right.
You know, so
yeah. Just wanted to throw it out there, but yeah.
Excellent.
Cool that you guys know about it.
I
do you guys want me to turn on the camera or is it fine like this?
I would appreciate that because I like being able to.
Okay.
But I mean, of course, you don't have to. But yeah.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
Show us your face, Clayton.
No, like shortly about how what I'm currently believing / thinking. Like I'm nearly done with my bachelor in theology, but I really like got into the historical critical method, and I more or less came to the same conclusion like you guys. I would still call myself a theist, even Christian, but it's just I'm just trying to make sense of it. And now I've also come to the conclusion that doesn't matter which Abrahamic faith you believe in, you're a crypto-Platonist, because if you read the theologians, they all use Platonism and Aristotelianism, so that's just there. And the God of the Trinity is the one from classical theism. He has nothing to do with Yahweh or Jehovah. And yeah, that's where you're like, okay, this is kind of weird. But for me, like I'm still a theist because I need something that gets me through life, and believing in a deity. I'm even willing to say that he's impersonal. But yeah, for me, it gives me like something that can navigate me through life. Right now, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm thinking about like the one, and that we're just an emanation, and Christianity is like the tradition in which we see it, and there is no heaven, no hell. I think we all end up something like, henosis, and ethics and the good is. I would really use Platonism to explain all of that.
So you're
just yeah.
You have you read Plotinus at all? Like a little bit, or
I've read Plato and a little bit of Plotinus, but I'm not through with them.
Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
There's this main idea of the one, and it's like this
Yeah.
pusher. It's almost like very deist, because this first pusher doesn't really care about humans. He creates humans and then walks away. And then there's all daemons. There's these intermediate daemons or spirits or gods that are like sort of, they're the ones engaging with humans. But yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of what you're getting at? You're sort of like a Neoplatonist mindset.
Yeah, I'm still trying to explore it. I don't know if we really need diamonds or angels.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's where I'm currently at. Maybe, I don't know, in half a year, I'm like, yeah, it's hopeless. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out something else. But yeah, I
want to commend you for a second and just say that, first of all, I love the way that you approached this and the way that you're communicating about it. You're on a journey to learn, and that's what matters. Whether you stay a theist or not, I want to encourage you to find whatever works for you in this world that we live in, that helps you the best and helps you with others and living this life. That's my number one thing. I'm not here to deconvert and make everyone become an atheist. Neil told me he wanted to start a fight, so make this thumbnail say this. So, no, but he, he wanted us to come and just kind of like be able to have these conversations and have people challenge or whatever. But the thing is I understand what you're saying and I respect it, because I think we all want a comfort of something, and that what that is, I think, is psychological. I am a physicalist.
Yeah.
I do think naturalism makes the best sense of the data to me. Could other things be the case? Maybe. I just don't have the evidence. So I'm starting with something that I can have concrete and go from there. And so that's part of my epistemology. But at the end of the day, I found that comfort, that security in that thing within myself. and realizing that it was me and those loved ones around me, my community, and things like that. Whereas it used to be, see, people go, how could you have a relationship with God like you did for all those years, Derrick? And then now say you have no relationship and you don't believe in God, you must be insane. I've seen a lot of Christians who make this comment. You have to be insane, because how could you do that and then turn away and not have that anymore? What they aren't realizing is I went through a transition. It was kind of like mourning a death of someone when I thought it was Jesus. But eventually that whole parable of Jesus carrying you in the sand when you see two footprints, it was really me the whole time. So it was like recognizing like, hey, hold on. It was me. It was my loved ones. It was the people that I actually, can physically touch, that actually have involvement in my life. There's no reason to draw the other conclusion. But some people, they feel or experience something, they think that way. And that's just, that's their personal perception. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can with that data.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead, respond to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want to say that's why I also like watching you guys, because you're not like, oh my God, I hate Christianity, I'm gonna destroy it and all. Your approach is honest. For me, it's like for me, atheism leads to nihilism, and I can't deal with that. It leads to self-destruction. In my opinion, that's how I feel about it. But what you just said, Derrick, this whole stuff about a personal relationship with Jesus and stuff. In my experience, I never had that, even when I was a bit more of a bit more serious about the faith and the Bible and how I understood it. But I was like, I was always thinking, what are these guys talking about? I don't like, you have these conversations and they're like, Jesus told me this and that. I'm like, okay, I don't know in what way this person means it, but okay, whatever. And now, I mean, in light of what I've learned these past 10 years, it's like, okay, this is some psychological stuff, and I'm also a bit of a skeptic with epistemology and all. I'm just really trying to figure out everything.
Yeah.
Again, I noticed that never once in this conversation you said to Derrick or me that we have to believe in what you believe or else, which I appreciate. Yeah. I think that's the healthy approach to be. It's like we're all trying to figure out what this reality is. Like even atheists are like, we don't know what happened before the Big Bang. Like we're all trying to figure out. It's all a mystery. But like, when people start acting like I figured it out, here it is, and if you don't follow this, you're going to be doomed to hell or whatever. That's the thing that I take. That's the thing that I try to oppose. But even those opinions I welcome as well on the show. But I'm just saying that's just how I feel about it. But anything else you want to say before we go to the next person? Because
I want to second what both of you guys said. Is it Nico? Is that
Nico? Yeah,
Nico. Yeah. I mean, here you said things that some of which don't really resonate with me or that I don't agree with. But at the same time, I wouldn't take umbrage with anything that you said just now. The way that you are just approached it so honestly and cordially, it's a breath of fresh air, and it's very much appreciated, sir.
I think this is I know you guys over there in the US. I'm in Germany. I was born and raised here, but I'm Italian. And even in my university, when I said, hey guys, I have thought of this and that, they weren't like, oh my God, dude, you're lost now. They were very accepting of that, and it's just maybe different, climate that we're in, so to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Roku. We'll talk to you soon. So before we get to Muslim apologists, and that guy was cool, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Before we get to Muslim apologists, I want to throw on some super chats real quick. And that was the last one we read. And then we'll get you 1 second with Muslim apologists. Stop Scamming Man says Apollonius was apparently a vegetarian who didn't think gods wanted animal sacrifice. Which is, I've got that reading from his text as well. Doesn't mean Jesus is a ripoff of him or vice versa, but does show some really could think outside the box. Interesting. Yeah, I think there was definitely some sort of something in the air at the time where people were changing their ways towards all this. I don't know, whatever. That's a whole other topic. But yeah, I guess you're right about that. stop scamming, man. Thank you for that. Anything you want to say about that, guys, or next one?
I mean, I would say that it's a Greek idea. It seems mostly that reincarnation of your loved ones happens. And so you see a lot of the polemics going back to Manetho and other authors BC that are actually against the Jewish sacrifice cult. That doesn't mean all of them, but there seems to be a Greek idea where they're like, hold on, you guys are sacrificing animals. Some of those animals might be your own family members reincarnated. So they thought it was a cruel system. And so I wonder if that's still playing into the Greek idea here with Apollonius, but
that's a good point.
Hellenism's coming in. Jews still have a sacrificial system, but are all thinking that way? I don't know. It's kind of like even when you look up Caesar Augustus, he did animal sacrifices in some of the temples.
Oh, yeah.
Look it up. So not all pagans or Greeks were practicing that kind of stuff.
But Jews weren't affected by Hellenism because there was a magic bubble around Palestine during the time Jesus lived.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, the name Alexander Jannaeus isn't Hellenist or anything like that. So, let's just... Anyway, Zachary Goodwin, Jesus, occult, gematria, energy, gospel, Messiah, Lucifer, Jewish, all equal 74 in gematria with alphabetical order. July 4th date of America's birthday. Conclusion. Bum bum bum. That's some deep level thinking we got there, guys. I'm impressed. Thank you for that super chat.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Muslim apologists, you've been waiting for some time. Let's get your thoughts. The floor is yours, man.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Sounds good.
Yeah, great to. I'm so glad that you're willing to have me on. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Knowing my background, right?
A little bit. I know you and my buddy Paste Prophet go back and forth and have some, but that's between you two. So I don't, you haven't done anything wrong to me yet, so I don't know, but yeah.
I'm just going to tell you the truth. He's an idiot. All right. Okay. So anyway.
Well, that's my friend.
Yeah.
Friend. So I don't want to talk about him, but let's stay on the issue.
Yeah. It's fine if you're friends with him, but yeah, my opinion that he's an idiot. Okay. But anyway, going back to the, I guess to your topic here, I'm not going to connect it with Islam much, but I'm just going to state my views or my belief about Jesus. All right. So, based on what we already know about Jesus, the early Christians, the records that we have. And I've also asked several questions with the super chats, right, on your channel, right, Neil? Yeah. And I've also learned a lot from Derrick's channel as well, ironically. And based on what we have seen, I believe as a Muslim, I believe that the Christians, I don't know whether it was Paul, it could be Paul. Okay, I believe that Paul especially has perverted the true message of Jesus. Okay, I believe that Jesus was truly a messenger of God, as mentioned in the Quran. Is consistent with what we know about the early Christians and the early teachings of Jesus, and that along the way, the early Christians were influenced by paganism, Neoplatonism, all these external influences, and it totally changed the message. So what Jesus preached in Matthew, I can't remember the exact verse. I think it was in Matthew, where Jesus says that he was going out to preach the gospel of the kingdom of God. That original message has changed throughout the decades after Jesus' ascension. I as a Muslim don't believe that Jesus was resurrected, by the way. I believe he was saved. So after Jesus' ascension, somehow this message was perverted by Paul, and it became what we now know as Christianity. This is what I believe as a Muslim as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyone want to respond to that?
I mean, I think it's coming from someone who is a Muslim. I think that's a fairly reasonable position to take. I think I know I've read from Jewish scholars that the Sermon on the Mount is actually pretty Pharisaic in content. That if anything, something like that would suggest that Jesus was actually a Pharisee, which I find interesting, and that these ongoing debates that we're presented with in the Gospels are precisely because he was hashing this out with other Pharisees. Now, how much can we actually pin that down to being historical? That for me is another question, but it's just something I find interesting.
I definitely agree with, I think there's an easy way of being highly critical of other religions with other positions. And I definitely agree that there is a change taking place even on the meaning of the kingdom of God, the apocalyptic message. I do, however, of course, disagree with the conclusions, even if I was taking a historical approach. I definitely think that he would have been killed, crucified. And so we have our disagreements on these particular things. And I mean, I guess we could get into the details, but it's just you voiced your position, and I'm just voicing mine.
Before I let you go, though, it was an interesting take, because I think there might be some truth to Paul's Christianity versus whatever was going on in the time of Jesus. But there was a super chat that just popped up, and I'm not skipping the line, but it's relative to Islam. So I'm just going to pop it on the screen before you go, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this. Samantha Desjardins, thanks for the super chat. Sure. Doesn't the Kaaba house 365 pagan gods?
Well, this was before the era of Islam. Yes. The Kaaba did house 365 pagan gods. Yeah. So each idol was for each day, I believe. And when Islam became a city state, was established in the city state of Medina, and when the Prophet gained enough political power to, because the Meccans, the pagan Quraysh, they violated the agreement of Hudaybiyah. So the Prophet went to war against them. He gathered 10,000 men, I believe, and they marched against Mecca, and they conquered the city peacefully, I might add. And when the Prophet arrived at the Kaaba itself, he personally destroyed all these 365 pagan gods. So this is a relic of the past. So it has nothing whatsoever to do with Islam.
It's interesting. So is it sort of a symbol of conquering the pagan world, or is that why they still venerate the Kaaba? Because why wouldn't they just get rid of it completely?
No, from our perspective, we believe that Kaaba was built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, and the pagan Arabs throughout the centuries after the passing of Ishmael, they corrupted the house of Kaaba. They desecrated it, and they turned it into a pagan house. And so when Islam came, the Prophet purified it and restored it to the true religion of Abraham. This is what we believe as Muslims.
All right, that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, I think you got a good point about Paul's Christianity versus whatever was going on in the point. Yeah. But thanks for your input. Anything else you want to say?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no.
Thanks for having me. And I would like to invite you and all of you to my channel. If I were to have a live stream, please do join in. I would love to hear your views. Okay.
Email me. We'll set it up for sure.
I also think it's.
Okay, so, yeah, sure. So may I know where's your email, by the way?
It's on my page on the about.
All right. Okay. I'll email you too, Derek, if you're interested, right? And
all right, email me. If I have the time, I'm always non-freaking stop,
Derek, you have something to say before he goes? Derek?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting what you say about Paul and about, the sort of pagan or Hellenistic admixture that came along with him. I think it's an open question, really, of how much did Paul innovate and how much did he actually just inherit? Because we know that Judaism was already pretty darn Hellenized by the time Christianity even came onto the scene. So, it probably would have been some form of Hellenized Judaism to begin with. But that doesn't mean that Paul, in selling this message to Gentiles, didn't take it even further. So that it's just an open question, really. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's always open to debate, right?
Oh, and one more thing. I just thought of this too. Monotheism was popping in the first century. They were called the Hypsisterians all over Asia Minor. It was a huge movement so some scholars think it came out of the Phrygian religion of Great Mother and Sabazios, which is like a different version of Zeus. and that over time the reverence just went towards Sabazios and it became monotheistic. But anyways, the point is, by the time Paul's writing his letters, there's already Greek monotheists who already are. So I just want to throw that out there, like that the network was there for it to be received, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right. So I'll see you again. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Before we get to Odinson, there's one more super chat. Thank you, Constellation Pegasus. I always appreciate your super chats. You're always adding to the conversation. I love it. Thank you. Are you three lovely people going to Kingdom Hall next Sunday?
Yes.
Of course.
And I already said there's no guarantee of pants. None.
Is the Kingdom Hall, is that some Jehovah's Witness thing?
Yes.
Apparently,
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, you're not going to see me there, but I would love to one day go there with some cameras and some mics and just interview people. That'd be kind of like, like the Channel 5 style videos. I want to do something like that one day with like Jehovah's Witnesses, just talk, not talk shit or anything, just have fun. Hey, why are you here? What do you believe in? Stuff like that. So, but yeah, thanks for that super chat. And now we have another challenger that is in the house, and it's Adam Green. What's going on, Adam?
What's up, guys? Adam Green is my God-given birth name that I have since renounced because it's Hebrew, so I'm going by Thor Odinson, so you guys would let me on, but that's just a joke. What's up, Neil and Derrick Squared? So nervous to talk to you guys. I've been watching you guys all the time. You guys are where it's at with all the scholars online. I've learned a lot, so thank you.
Well, you got quite the following now too, man. You're doing your thing. I see that.
Well, now, a few years ago, before I was banned from YouTube, I had 135,000 subscribers.
Wow.
But, yeah, and my most recent channel was banned too. It was my 5th YouTube channel, No More Religion. And I was banned from the Mythvision Facebook group for sharing some memes of Christopher Hitchens saying, speaking ill of Judaism. But what do I believe? I believe in mythicism. And I believe that the purpose of the Torah, the prophetic destiny of the Messiah, was to make footstools of his enemies, to rule like a rod in the land of thine enemies, to make the Gentiles and the nations worship the God of Israel, abandon their pagan idol worship. But they didn't want them to convert to Judaism. They wanted them God-fearing, right? That was the term for pre-Christian believers in the God of Israel. They wanted them God-fearing. They didn't want them following the Torah laws. So they couldn't convert to Judaism, but they needed to create a religion for them. You guys, there's a lot of, creating Christ, Caesar's Messiah, Roman providence theory that it's Christianity was a psyop to subdue the messianism. But I think the most obvious explanation for Christianity is that it's theological warfare to conquer the minds of the Roman Empire. And
I would like to butt in here. So there's a couple things. I don't know if I would put so much emphasis on I don't want to deny there's some type of psyop effect going on here, meaning I think it's in competition and it's trying to say Jesus is the real son of God, not Julius Caesar Augustus, the Julio Claudio line. I do think that it's setting up a completely different kind of kingdom, or it's competing to the Roman Empire. I'm not a Roman provenance guy, as I used to kind of think maybe there's something there. Mm-hmm. I do think it's Jewish grassroots movements up, but I would also want to be more clarifying that it's not a homogenous idea within Jewish minds, even throughout Hebrew scripture. So I wouldn't say all of it is to subdue Gentiles. I would say there is emphasis of this throughout scripture, and there seems to be even opposition among prophets. Isaiah, Jeremiah, you name it, Ezekiel. They're even in competition with each other's ideas oftentimes, like Dr. Kip Davis, the Dead Sea Scroll scholar, says. So I wouldn't say if we find an ugly idea, and there are ugly ideas, as you well know, Adam, you and I have talked endlessly about these ugly ideas that have shown up in the Hebrew Bible. I wouldn't only emphasize that is the only thing there. That's all I would like to say, is that if we're balancing out the ideas, it isn't always negative toward Gentiles. And in fact, conversion begins to incorporate itself in late Second Temple Judaism to where non-Jews could literally become children of Abraham without the Christian message. Christianity just kind of hijacks that. That's why when we talked a while ago,
Where's he
that
going?
book,
Oh, dude.
Jews and Their Roman Rivals by Cattell Berthelot. She actually goes and emphasizes the variation in debate amongst rabbis and different people. That's such a good book to kind of show that apart from Christianity, Jews were already kind of using these ideas to make non-Jews sons of Abraham, not through genealogical sperm, but actually through being covenantally relationship with the community. And it's not like one idea. Many Jews had the idea you need to be born. You have to have the bloodline. Others were saying, no, if they have belief, if they have faith, if they join the community, by that joining, they could become children of Abraham. And it's not one idea. I just want to paint, it's a much muddier picture.
I agree. There's no monolithic one view of Second Temple Judaism, but it's pretty clear that the overall goal of the Messiah was to redeem the Jews that were occupied by Rome.
Right.
And did Jesus not a few hundred later ultimately conquer the Roman Empire?
A few hundred what?
A few hundred years later. Did Jesus
Did
not?
Jesus?
Did Jesus cult? Yeah. The Jesus
cult
myth.
of Christ? Are you talking about Jesus Christianity?
Well, yeah, Christianity and Jesus are two different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say Jesus had no bearing on what happened.
It's splitting hairs,
Let me
though.
respond that with a question. Let me ask you this: How would you? So Constantine comes around, he converts to Christianity, and then not even a couple decades later, in his own dynasty, one of his grandsons or nephews, Julian the Apostate, comes along, and he wants to return Jerusalem back to the Jews who are kicked out of Jerusalem, where Jerusalem is becoming a Christianized city. It was just pagan. Now it's becoming Christianized. The Jews are spread out.
He must have saw Christianity as a threat to Rome, which it ultimately was, theological warfare. The whole objective of the Messiah was to basically conquer the nations, right?
But why give it back to the Jews then, if this was all about Jews conquering them? Why give Jerusalem back to the Jews if the pagan, the one who's opposing Christianity, is the one who's going to give it back to the Jews?
I don't know the specific details on that. I'd have to look into it more. But Jesus is following the suffering Messiah archetype of Joseph. As you guys well know, what is the story in Joseph in Genesis? He's a shepherd who is rejected by his brothers, sold by Judas, and then he rises to rule over the Gentile empire in Egypt. That's the archetype that they followed for Jesus.
And he also curses the fig tree, which is the establishment temple Jews, the Sadducees.
Well, he speaks harshly against his brothers, and his brothers do not recognize him as well. And you guys mentioned the Sermon on the Mount. I've been reading Randall Helm's Gospel Fictions right now, and he says that the New Testament is quoting from the Septuagint in the Sermon on the Mount. So I think that rules out any possibility that there was a real historical Jesus speaking in Aramaic, because they're taking this straight from the scriptures. I'm with
you on the Sermon on the Mount being a creation, if you will, put into the mouth of Jesus. But then again, I'm not dying on the hill when it comes to this being an argument for or against Jesus' existence, because I do think the Gospels fluff up things a lot.
You actually just touched on something that's a big deal, because the Septuagint was seen as not the right way. Like the Septuagint was the Hellenized version that all these other weirdos are doing, where there's
the Alexandrian Jews are the ones that did that. And so I think that's who also came up with the New Testament, and they're related to the Essenes actually, because they split with the Sadducees, and they had a big temple in Alexandria as well. Right. And you guys have one guest on who has a theory, and a lot of people cite him, that it's legitimate, that the Septuagint was which is the Tanakh essentially, isn't until 275 BC.
Gamirkan.
Right?
Yeah.
What's that guy's name?
Russell Gamirkan.
Gamirkan. I need to get his book. I need to cite him more.
Yeah, he's good. But with that being said, though, doesn't that show you that there's an outside movement of Hellenized Judaism that has nothing to do with Israel? If it's in Alexandria, that's not Israel. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Like Philo and his Logos, which I saw your debate with Carrier about how that's not Joshua, but I think that very clearly is where they got the anointed Joshua figure for Yeshua. But the point I want to get across before you guys go to another caller is the prophecies were for getting the whole world, all the nations, to worship Yahweh. They accomplished that through Christianity. Now half the world, the Abrahamic religions have dominated the last 2,000 years more than any other thing that I know of. half the world believes in this Jesus figure as the Son of God, even Christianity and Islam. The top rabbi, and this is the official consensus rabbinical view on Christianity, is that fulfilled their prophecies. It wasn't an accident. And Maimonides says, top 12th century rabbi says that it's preparing the world for the Messianic age. Even Tovia Singer says this, that their prophecies would not be able to be fulfilled without Christianity.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. We can point back to before Christianity, and we have Middle Platonism already geared towards a monotheistic God.
Mm-hmm.
Judaism and Platonism, they fit like a glove. And then you have the Hypsisterians, the Greek monotheists. The trending thing of the time was monotheism. It's not just the Jews that are making people monotheists. There's other monotheistic movements popping up around that time. Christianity grows out of this environment that's already moving towards a one.
Let me make a quick comment here on what Adam's saying here that I think is important, and what anyone who's going to look into this stuff should do. Look at the sources, of course. Dive into this. I'm curious to know exactly the context of Maimonides. I'm curious to know exactly the historical relationship of what he's saying and why. And the reason why, throughout church history, nothing but shit has been thrown at from Christians to Jews. Yep. Yet this sounds like Jews are secretly controlling the whole thing, whereas this becomes a Gentile religion, technically. Eventually, Jews are kind of pushed out to the point where they're being force converted back into Christianity. Yeah, where they don't even want this thing.
And I condemn Christian anti-Semitism. I think it's awful. But see, they're creating. You have to understand the dynamic, the dichotomy of Jacob and Esau, because that's Judaism and the descendants of Jacob and Esau, which they believe is the Roman Empire. And Esau
I agree that there are
Jacob.
certain Jews
that's the prophecy.
Who see that. There are certain Jews who see this. This is my point about. When we talked about how the Old Testament talks about particular things, we shouldn't just make it one thing. And in fact, there is this.
I have nuance.
I got to jump in here for a second, because Paul himself uses the Jacob and Esau brothers.
He does.
And he talks about Esau being the ones that are bondage by the law. Those are the Jews, and Jacob is actually the nations. That he flips it on its head. But like that, all that doesn't explain how you get Christianity.
No, you're wrong, Neil. Paul says that he cites the verse where it says God hates Esau, but then he goes, no, God forbid that he would hate Esau. And then he's talking about basically grafting in Esau and going after, he believes all of Abraham's descendants will be blessed through Abraham, like the Genesis prophecy to Abraham in the covenant. And that's why he brings in Esau represents Christianity and Islam represents the firstborn son from Ishmael.
Hold on, you're interpreting Romans 9 as Esau is not hated?
Yeah, let him finish, then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's his Pharisaic pilpul in this context. But also, how can these Roman provenance people say that it's written in Greek? It's Paul is the earliest Christian sources that we have, basically. He's the apostle to the Gentiles. The Gospels are all Pauline. It's like the Great Commission going to the Gentiles. It's obviously that this was a religion that was, the prophecies called for to be reject their Messiah. He had to atone. He had to be rejected, like we see written out of Isaiah 53 and Wisdom of Solomon, and even the Gospel of Judas gets into this a little bit. And in John, it talks about how Caiaphas has the meetings with the high priest, and he says that he must die for the Jewish nation. Otherwise, Rome would defeat them. I think this, like the Jesus Barabbas and Pilate story, they're deciding to go with the mythical suffering Messiah and then get the Gentiles to convert, because they couldn't fake a military leader. They couldn't have a military leader that would help them defeat Rome. So they went through setting up a Hegelian dialectic antithesis religion, which is Christianity. And then now it's got the whole world to worship their God, so that accomplished their goal.
That's
the elder
such a
shall
macro,
serve the younger. See, Jacob,
what that is what you're doing here is you're taking a very macro bird's eye view of history, and you're ignoring all the.
No, I'm not. I've got dozens of videos on my playlist on Odyssey. The Christianity Deception Exposed. I've debated a dozen or more Christians and Jewish people also.
We finished the point. there's a lot of logistics that go into this that's being ignored, and like the temple being destroyed, Christianity.
That was the prophecy, Daniel 9. The Messiah's cut off,
what
the
I'm saying,
sanctuary destroyed. The
Adam, do you believe these prophecies are true? I mean,
no. I believe they're written after the fact, or
they're finish, bro. They
try to. Okay, go ahead, finish.
So after this happens, when the disbursement occurs, Judaism is recognized as a legal religion under the Julio-Claudians. Christianity is illegal. Christianity slowly becomes a network of bishops and churches over time. There's a logistics that are we can look at it year by year and see everything that's going on, instead of just saying, okay, at the end Constantine, in the beginning Jesus. Oh, must be, therefore the whole plan was to get but in between all this, we see a lot of different logistics being played through, and then it's like the Jews at the end of the day are not getting anything beneficial from this. They're being forced to live into ghettos. It's like the outcasts of the Roman Empire are the Jews. Why would they want that?
Christianity outlawed usury and delegated that to them. And I've done videos on this, getting deep into it. It's sadistic. It's awful for Abrahamism, is awful for Jews. I think it's awful for Gentiles also. The persecution is indefensible. It's awful to blame Jews for killing God. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's turned Gentiles and Christians into the villains of history. And then now you get banned on YouTube if you talk critical of anything Judaism. So, but staying in ghettos, like, this is something that the rabbis actually say that they wanted and they enforce. There's ways that they actually like anti-Semitism. They believe that they're actually chosen to be hated. Esau hates Jacob. This is what they believe. They're the holy seed that must dwell alone, must be kept separate. And this, I've showed tons of it. I watch rabbi videos like literally every day, and to learn their deep esoteric beliefs. And they think anti-Semitism is a good thing for them. Not all of them, of course. And I don't think it's a good thing.
I don't know,
Derrick,
man.
You're shaking your head, but I could show you clip after clip of rabbis saying this. I want 2 more points, and I know you guys want to move on. Okay.
No,
also,
but I want to touch on Romans 9 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you interpreted this as Esau being the good one and Jacob being the bad one.
I did not do that. No.
You said Esau should be grafted in. You said.
No, that's what Paul was saying. He's comparing the Gentiles to Esau in Romans 9, is what I'm saying.
No, not necessarily. That's what. So what Neil just said was the Esau are the hardened-hearted Jews that aren't accepting the message that he wishes he was cut off for. So these are the people who didn't accept the message. Gentiles get grafted in, but they were never part of it to begin with. It's a whole nother tree. When you get later in that chapter, you see a contrast between Israel and the Gentile. So he's finding an argument to try and bring in Gentiles. One could try to argue, but this is an interpretive thing. There's so many things you said, though, Adam, that that we wouldn't even have enough time unless we spent the rest of this episode literally picking apart every little thing that you said to try and make a point. A lot of this does sound border anti-Semitic, and this was my problem initially.
See,
I understand that
you can wave that magic word to dismiss it and ignore it. But I could debate you guys for hours on this.
Adam, hear me out, man. You've been talking. I've been hearing you out. What is being said by a few rabbis? Maybe they do see it like a persecution complex. Like, in the last days, Christians think we're going to be persecuted for Jesus' name. Not all Christians think that. In fact, most probably have no reason in even thinking this way. So if we're going to call out a certain group, cool, we need to be very clear that we're not using this universally, especially when anti-Semitism is a legit real thing. That magic word isn't just a nothing. Like, there really has been systematic approaches to annihilating the race of Jews. That is a real thing that happened during Hitler's time. And that's why I'm like, hey, we need to be very cautious when you talk about this stuff. And that's why I distanced myself initially, because I said, hey, Adam, let's balance the odds, right? If you're going to be critical of Judaism, cool. That's fine. I'm critical of the Hebrew Bible. I'm critical of Judaism in that respect, and I am. I may not be only and solely critical of Judaism, but I think it's important to show that balance there, that we're not just...
There's a balance. I get hate every day. I'm not Jewish, and I get anti-Semitic hate directed at me from lunatic, depraved Christians every day for exposing Christianity. So I'm well aware that there's actual anti-Semites out there. But everything I'm saying is based upon research, based upon studying what the rabbis
Could that
believe and
research
say.
be wrong? Could there be some of these things that you're saying?
I mean,
For example,
all of it's wrong.
Maimonides.
All
I
of these are myths, but this is sincerely what they believe. Like, for instance, in Judaism, in Kabbalah, they believe that Jesus is the reincarnation of Esau and the reincarnation of Cain, and Cain ultimately derives from Eve and Samael and Lilith, so Satan.
Now, do you take that interpretation and go to the New Testament and then use that as the lens of understanding New Testament material? Because I would definitely say whatever is being said here in the Zohar or any other pieces of literature to try and understand, Christianity is not that.
What about Apocalypse of This goes back to Apocalypse of Abraham, which is 1st century.
And I would say every book in the New Testament needs to be parsed. Don't homogenize those texts either. Every single book, there are difference of theological opinions, different propositions that are being put out by each gospel. Each gospel is different.
I know.
I wouldn't read them as a uniform single teaching, just like I wouldn't take a rabbi who says something that's hateful towards Gentiles and then go and paint that and say, look, Jews teach this or Rabbinic Judaism teach that. All rabbis don't teach this. And this is why
This is a flawed, fallacious argument. I'm not saying every rabbi believes this, but if many of them do, I'm saying this is how you understand that Christianity is a controlled opposition religion, because it represents Esau. They believe Jesus is the reincarnation of Esau, which I don't believe.
Does Christianity actually teach that? So
Yes,
I don't
they
care
believed
what
Rome was
rabbis
Edom.
teach.
Esau is in Syria.
When you say they, what do you mean? You mean the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church?
Yeah, they believe it's the Catholic Church is how they compare Edom, the new Rome, the Holy Roman Empire, which now they believe there's. Even Tovia Singer says we have whole books about Edom that's going to be destroyed. Ovadia is one of them. Especially in the Zohar and Talmud, there's a constant theme about Edom being destroyed, the Messiah slaughtering the mountains of Seir and Esau. And Christianity represents that. And this is the idea of Esau is the evil firstborn son, just like Cain was the evil firstborn son. Jesus is the adversary Messiah. He's the Messiah ben Joseph, the first Messiah who is meant to be like Melchizedek, the high priest who does the atoning, has to die, has to be rejected and go to the Gentiles as a subversion, essentially, to theologically conquer the world. Has the Christian myth not theologically conquered the world to a large degree?
Okay, but when you look at the Talmud's view on Jesus, it's very negative. Why would they do that? How do you is that
because he's their adversary Messiah. They consider him essentially Satan. He's fulfilling the role of Satan.
So
he's
they created
adversary.
They created a Satan to take over the Roman Empire to treat them badly and to make
that to get the Gentiles to abandon and eradicate their pagan idol worship.
And then the Gentiles took their entire system and then used the sword against them. So they didn't see that this was actually going to be harmful to them in the long run. There's too much conspiratorial thinking here, in my opinion, that it doesn't factor in all the data.
There's really not. If you watch my videos, Derrick never wanted to watch my videos, so he doesn't actually see all the details why I say these things.
I'll tell you what, I've had you on for a while, and I'm not trying to dismiss you or run away from you. Why don't you send me a couple of sources that you have so I can see what you're looking at, and then we can have you and I can just do our own discussion, have a live, and just you and I will talk. I'm down to do that. Is that cool?
I would like that. And Neil, also, you slandered me pretty bad. You said that you want to apologize for that. You basically called me a white supremacist, and I have no supremacist views ever. I hate supremacy. That's why I'm so opposed to this idea of being chosen by God and above the nations and things like this.
Well, if you really aren't anti-Semitic,
you don't watch my videos, and you never knew that I was. You just said that.
Well, the little bit that I've seen of you is pretty. It comes off that way, and I could be wrong. So I'm willing to.
You're wrong.
I'm willing to look. I'm willing to have a discussion with you, and we can.
And let me ask you this, one last question, if I can. So we're talking about what Jews think about, in particular Jews, not all, very specific rabbis through history or specific authors that have written in the Zohar or whatever that may have had ideas. Do Jews in general, since you've been attacked, do they think you're an anti-Semite?
Some of them do, but many don't. I've got Jewish friends. I just was talked to some Kabbalist Jews last week. I'm going to go on their show this week. And I think this is a deception on them as well. I think.
But why do they think that? Why do you think they think you're an anti-Semite?
because they believe that any criticism of anything Judaism is considered blasphemy, essentially. You're not allowed. They think it's evil. You're Amalek. If you are anti-Torah, anti-Yahweh, you're considered Amalek. So you're the epitome of all evil.
Me and Derrick do
Just-
tons of videos that are.
Why am I not an anti-Semite and have friends like
you
Rabbi Toby
guys,
Singer?
you
I'm
guys don't
asking-
play rabbi clips. You guys don't expose their supremacist views like I have.
Well, listen, that's a big. You just answered the question. A rabbi is a Jewish person. It's not an idea. I'm not attacking people. I'm attacking ideas.
I watch so many different rabbis on YouTube. I make big compilations with all what they say. I don't say anything that I can't back up with the source or a clip of several rabbis saying these things.
That's people.
If and look, Adam,
I'll show this actual sources.
Let me just say
Zohar.
one thing, and this is I've said this on the phone when we used to talk on the phone a lot, and this is honestly just my honest advice. It would be useful if it wasn't just attacks toward Jewish ideas. If there was a balance of like highlighting positive, more progressive, not I'm a chosen race type people. Don't be critical of those types of Jews. Encourage people like that rather than just picking apart on Jews and their ideas. That's what I think is making them think. You can say you're not. I'm simply telling you why they and many others think this way is that emphasis. If you balanced out what you did, I don't think you'd get as much hell as you get.
Well, I'm telling you, the only hell that I get is crazy Christians calling me a secret Mossad agent and that I'm an antichrist blasphemer. That's where I get the majority of my hate is actually from the Christians. So. Well, and actually, I think a lot of Jewish people respect my research and my understanding of what they believe. And I think that if this is a conspiracy, it's only at the very highest level, and this is a deception on the masses of Judaism followers. Because it wouldn't work if they knew. And this is a mystery religion. Is Christianity not a mystery religion? Are they not obsessed with having esoteric secrets and readings into these scriptures? Of course they are.
All right. Well, listen, I do want to get to the next one, but
I want to talk to Caleb.
Yeah, but we will.
Thanks for waiting, Caleb.
We will further this another day. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. No more news. Check it out. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Can we please get a biased apologist on here?
Gosh,
Yeah.
For the love of God.
Yeah, thank you. I prefer biased apologist as the name in there. Yeah, that was
you gotta put that visible so people can see.
I died laughing the moment I saw that. I was like, oh my God.
Biased apologist.
Before you start, Caleb, I'm glad to have you here. I'm just gonna read a couple more super chats for a quick. Stop scamming, man. Thanks for the super chat. Nice live stream by the three wise men. Yep, you figured us out. We're actually magi. That's really what we are. That's the whole point of this stream. Thank you for that super chat. Duran Childs is in the house. Thank you for the $5. Could King Tut have been the Pharaoh of the Exodus? I say no.
I think it's way too recent, isn't it?
Yeah, and King Tut was a little boy. He was only in power.
He was like not. I think he died at like what 19 or something.
He's only in power for like 2 years or something like that. And yeah, there's no way that wouldn't be thrown in there in the discussion because Pharaoh and Moses are going back and forth for years. So this is clearly an adult. Probably, yeah, whatever. Anyways, thanks for the super chat though. It's always fun to talk about that kind of stuff. Discovering ancient history with Pat Lowinger. Thank you for the super chat. Well, my good friend that him and I are actually gonna be debating which dying and rising savior is better, and it's gonna be between Romulus and Jesus. By the way, so that's gonna come up pretty soon. Anyways, Romans weren't Greeks. The deification through apotheosis of Roman citizens before the 1st century CE is limited to two individuals, Romulus and Julius Caesar, beginning with Augustus. Boom! Yeah. Pat's always dropping fire, dude. That's why I need to get you back.
Pat, you got to check. If you're not subscribed to Pat, go subscribe. Seriously.
For sure. And
why does Romulus have an asterisk? Because it's not sure if he was an individual.
Oh, yeah. Why does Romulus have an asterisk? Romulus, because it's Romulus.
He might not have existed. Is that the?
That might be. Yeah. Because we don't know for sure.
Like individuals, I guess. But
that makes sense. Good eye, Caleb. Good eye.
Thank you. I try.
But yeah, I agree with everything that
he does have nice eyes.
Yeah.
I agree with everything Pat just said here. Anyone else want to comment on this before we continue?
Oh, I mean, there's so much I could say that I think is interesting on the idea of the Gospels, Acts. I do think Dennis is on to something with seeing this material, Virgil, the Aeneid, and how there's this competition between the Son of God, Julio Claudio line, and Jesus and stuff. And I do think that there's some significant reason to bring that up.
Yeah, the Caesar worship was a big deal in the time of Jesus. Like people were talking about the Son of God, Augustus, Tiberius.
Your video. So.
They're all talking about being sons of God. Now I'm not going to take that and go to a Roman provenance with it. I'm just going to say the idea of a son of God is in the air already. It's already a concept. It's like Superman and Batman aren't the same thing, but they both are both playing off some ideas that are already in the air. The comic book archetypal superhero, if that will. So the Son of God idea is out there.
I think that what makes Roman provenance appealing to many, and this is my thoughts, is if you look at full preterism and how they want to say that 70 AD, the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, is the final judgment, the resurrection of the dead, they want to equivocate that 70 AD event with these final things, because in the mouth of Jesus, as he's saying in Mark, look, these are the signs and it's about to go down. And the next thing you know, what happens? The destruction of the Jerusalem temple. So if what was expected, the final resurrection and stuff didn't happen, full preterists want to equivocate them. So I think using that analogy, we see it's definitely riffing in the trope of the Caesar cult. It's riffing in that same kind of Julio Claudio, Roman imperial cult type competitive nature within the Gospels. The Gospel Mark, there's a commentary by John Collins' wife, Adela Collins. She gets into this quite frequently in Mark's Gospel, and I think Richard C. Miller also mentions this. But it's so closely related that you conflate them and go, well, it's looking like it because it's trying to co-opt and say Jesus is Caesar. Really, I'm seeing the opposite. I think it's so close because it's trying to oppose, but it's doing it in a very delicate manner, not so overtly, but covertly in a sense.
Competitive assimilation, as M. David Litwa calls it, which is spot on.
Right.
Oh, and one more thing he added to this. There's also the problem that Philip the Syrian may have been assassinated for his position in regards to Christianity. Was he a convert? Who knows? By the way, I've read what's the author's name? Herodian. Herodian is a third century author who talks about Philip the Arab and says he got baptized. Like he straight up says Philip the Arab was baptized on this day. You just get baptized and not become a Christian? Like that's a bit. So I think the people who think that Philip is the first Christian, not Constantine, they get ridiculed a lot, but they at least have some evidence to go off. It's not empty, it's not just empty, baseless claims. There is something to be said about Philip the Arab. But
did you say that you can't get baptized and not be a Christian? Because I'm pretty sure you and Derrick both got baptized in Jordan River recently, right?
And I was a Christian.
That's true. Did you watch that clip, Caleb?
Yeah.
Was it fun? I mean, was it like?
It would have been better if the skies opened up and the dove came down, but I guess
that's what I thought. Damn it.
It did. It was invisible.
That's right.
Want to know something crazy? The opposite happened. There was a lunar, or was it a solar eclipse happened while we were in the water. We didn't even know it was going to happen until we got back on the bus. And somebody in the back was like, "Hey, there was just a solar eclipse. Did you guys see it?"
Oh, that's so they thought this, dude, Neil, they thought this was a joke. We actually did not even know anything about that there was going to be some partial lunar eclipse. We were in the river, baptized in the river, and when you watch the camera again, you'll notice that it's not as bright. Like at the very beginning, when you get in the water, you can tell that it's brighter, and then it gets kind of dimmed. Of course, it's not a full lunar eclipse or whatnot. We get out and find out there was actually a lunar eclipse when we got baptized in the Jordan River. So if we're not sons of God, I mean, I don't know what, come on. I mean, it's obvious.
That's funny though, isn't it? Like imagine if we were right, if you were doing this and I was writing, it's like, oh, these two, are getting baptized in like a way mocking Yahweh or whatever, right? And then let's say, and I reported, and as they were doing this, the sun grew dark, and suddenly, if you were reading that later on, you're like, oh, well, obviously that didn't happen because the sun happened to get dark, and like, what are the chances? But Yeah, I think it's like when Caesar dies in the shooting star and they think that's his body, or any other, or when Caesar assassinated, the sun
Halley's
goes
Comet.
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sun going dark was a fairly common thing, but I do think people were looking for things like that. And so it could have been the sun going dark. It could have been that the wind blew a different way. There could have been an earthquake, like it, whatever. But I think people are looking for things and like, oh, that's different. That must be the reason, right? So, yeah, I think that's an interesting analogy there.
Ricky Johnson, thank you for the super chat. Neil, Derek, and Derek, the Holy Trinity.
Thank you. Appreciate the support, Ricky. Good to see you here, my friend.
Ditto.
So,
Yeah,
so go ahead, dude.
Caleb's here to challenge, man.
Caleb,
He's here to
yeah, no, I was just going to first complain first of all, because Derrick Lambert moved back to the West Coast and then Derrick Bennett moved away. So like they're both all on the opposite end of the country from me now. And, why would you do that? Yeah, of course it does. So that's always there. And then Neil's on the opposite end of that. So
we had our breakfast together though. We did.
That's going to be a lot harder now. Than
Dude, it's like,
that way.
it was like 7 degrees yesterday.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's free.
Didn't you all get hit really hard with those that blizzard that happened, I think, in December?
Yeah, but huge. There people died. Like 7 people died.
Yeah,
it was crazy, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, gosh.
I couldn't have wished it on a worse person.
Yeah, that's good. No, I didn't have anything in particular. Then the green kind of threw me for a loop there in terms of just processing the. It's like if you just took Joseph Atwill, but then had an anti-Semitic twist to it. But putting that aside, I'm looking forward to your conversation with with Michael Jones on Wednesday. I think it is, right?
Yeah, I got to set that up too. So I don't have, set up the thumbnail, the title, that way it's out there. But yeah, I want to have a conversation. I mean, you saw my video yesterday.
I did. I saw both of your all's videos. I'm actually writing a script, trying to do a brief response, but we'll see that there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be, hopefully we walk away at least understanding why each person thinks the way that they do about it.
But, I think it says something when you get, especially Derrick Bennett, when you get Michael to, I don't know about rethink his position, but kind of double down in terms of first denying parallels and saying, well, maybe there are some parallels, but it doesn't really mean it, right? Which seems like it's kind of an admission and inadvertently, right? Or at least a reconsideration.
Kind of a tacit admission. I mean, he's not going all the way and saying, okay, look, fine, I admit it. He's just saying, for the sake of argument, I'll grant you this. And then
he even adds, well, I don't really agree with.
Right.
And he might just mean
but that's
the category of dying, rising gods. That doesn't mean there aren't examples of similar things.
But that is still moving more in the direction toward, where we're at.
Right.
For what that's worth.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things me and Derek have been talking over the last few days. Like once you grant, we're playing chess in our head. Once you grant a thing, you're already in the slippery slope. And now you know why fundamentalists are fundamentalists. Because it's so much easier to say, no, it's not true, and hold to this idea that there is no impact, there is no connection, there is nothing there. But I think he's too smart to try and take that kind of position. He admits that it's mimetic to the Hebrew Bible, right? So he's clearly recognizing that. But I think anyone should recognize that. It just goes a little further in recognizing, does one have to think that everything written here actually happened as it's being written? Or is there not a literary liberty of the author to kind of write Jesus the way that they're seeing him? It's not eyewitness is my point. It's more creative.
So I agree with you that I don't think that it's a dichotomy of either the parallels aren't there and it's all just in your head and you're just seeing things, or, oh, this is completely ripped off of it. It must be borrowed, right? I think you can have a little bit of a combination. And so, I mean, I've talked to you about this before, Derek, but Lambert, I figured I have to specify now we'll just say better Derek, right?
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, there you go. But no, I think that there's 4 options you can usually have with any kind of parallel, right? You can have the option of it was completely invented to suit the parallel and completely written up. You can have the parallels don't exist and it's all just illusory. Those are the 2 that most people seem to do. The other 2 that people don't talk about as much that are also plausible are that the characters intentionally tried to fulfill the parallels, like how you have Alexander the Great trying to replicate the life of Achilles, or Caesar Augustus trying to replicate the life of Alexander the Great. I do think Jesus deliberately went out of his way to be the next Elisha, Elijah, Moses. Yeah. He saw himself as this prophet. John the Baptist does the same thing when he wears the camel's hair, which is kind of similar to how Elisha has it was really hairy guy, right? So I do think that you have this kind of intentional fulfillment of it. So Jesus deliberately, rides the colt to fulfill Zechariah and all this stuff. It's not like it's just a coincidence. Like, it's like,
no, let me jump on that for a second, because that's, even though that's possible, obviously that's possible. Jesus jumping on a donkey is very possible. I mean, of course, it's not like he's doing anything magical there, but it's also very possible that the people who are writing these stories are trying to portray Jesus as this next Elijah figure. So Alexander the Great,
which is the first option, yeah.
But yeah, we don't know if Alexander the Great really was trying to act like Achilles. For all we know, the pseudo Castellanus, or whatever his name is, who wrote the first biography called the Royal Journal, he could have been making him look like that. We don't know that that's that.
Well, I think Alexander saw himself. I think he believed he was a descendant of Achilles. Did he not?
Yeah, there was the
life of Alexander. Yeah,
the Macedonian bloodline is Achilles.
Yeah, so it's this idea of like, oh, you're the chosen one, right? You're the even Jesus is told like, oh, you're the Messiah, and I think Luke with what's her name, the prophetess, and Luke 2 or whatever it is. So yeah, this idea of you tell them from a young age, and they have these expectations they're supposed to be this way. I think John the Baptist was very similar in that way, where he thought he was a prophet. So yeah. Yeah, you have. I think Theudas and some of the rebels were trying to replicate the crossing of the Red Sea. Josephus says, and you also have. I think Pilate took out some Samaritans who one of them said they were the reincarnation of Moses. So yeah, this idea of, oh, I'm the next one of this, or the reincarnation, or the next prophet, or whatever, was very common. So I'm agreeing. I'm not saying that we can do either one, but I'm just saying these are the options. We have the fourth one as well. And what I think also happens is that the authors are trying to portray them in this way, and I would concede that, but they're taking the narratives and selecting them in order to tell their story so that it looks this way, right? So that's the distinction between, they could be flat out inventing it, they could be having all of these stories, and they're picking the ones that make it fit their narrative, which is why you have 4 different gospels. So I think it's difficult to decipher which one of those is plausible. I will say that I think that a lot of the times when Jesus is fulfilling prophecy, they're taking random parts of the Old Testament and trying to put the life of Jesus back onto it. So I don't think in those cases they are starting with the Old Testament and inventing something out of it. I do think they're saying, well, the Egyptian story, oh, well, here Hosea says, I'll call my son out of Egypt. That's talking about Israel, obviously, but let's make that fit, right? I don't think any Jew was reading that saying, oh, the Messiah has to come out of Israel at that time. Right?
So I want to use an example that I think we might actually somewhat agree here rather than the birth narrative, because I would say I think the portents and birth narrative was invented. Could there have been? We go back to possibility. Sure, possible. But when we look at like the crucifixion of Jesus, here's this, oh my gosh, out of nowhere, that guy dies, right? You just saw Adam came on as a mythicist and pointed out, here's the archetype, Isaiah 53, and they just used the Hebrew Bible to create the narrative of his death and suffering and such. Whereas what I would think is, here's this guy, he literally gets crucified and killed, and then they find picking out pieces here from the Hebrew scriptures and apply. So I do think there's something to that. Here's the headache for me. I think because I don't have a dog in this race in terms of needing this to be historically reliably true, I wrestle between, is there history behind the creativity, the theological and vivid imagination of the author that's kind of creating a lot of the narratives about Jesus? Is there history there? I think maybe there is. I don't know. And that's the problem with having a way to be able to see, especially when it's legendary a lot. How do we know what actually happened and what didn't? The other thing is it completely made up? Those are the two things I wrestle between. But I definitely think the first and the second option are kind of the fundamentalists, both extremes, rather than finding a middle ground. And that's what I'm trying to do. What do you think, D?
So yeah, what I'll do is I'll just kind of lay out what I think probably happened. Number one, I think there probably was a historical Jesus. And number two, I think he very well had been crucified, and that this was, initially not what they were expecting. It's not what most of them anyway, thought the Messiah was. It's not what they thought was going to happen to the Messiah. So this is devastating. This is tragic. right? So I think historical Jesus, crucifixion, probably historical. What winds up happening, of course, is via, you know, processes like cognitive dissonance reduction, which is pretty prevalent among zealous religious and political movements.
Apocalyptic.
An apocalyptic, of course. 17th century, sabotage the V, this stuff was going on. They reconcile the tragedy via, you know, the scriptures and Jewish expectations of the resurrection of the dead. They look to, you know, just you were talking about the suffering servant of Isaiah. This is someone who dies and atones for sin, right? So they see in that, here's the answer to our predicament. Here's the resolution. His death was an atonement for sin. This was all supposed to play out just the way that it did. And of course, if they're using a passage like Isaiah, among other passages in the Hebrew Bible as well, like the Psalms and Hosea and so forth, they're bound to see also that what happens to the servant in 52:13, he will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Hello. I mean, that's right there within the same passage. There's your whole idea of being, having a resurrection exaltation to the right hand of God and so forth.
Isn't this where you wrestle between, and maybe we wrestle in our minds because we don't know, but we wrestle between saying that narrative is created, like mythicists would say, right? And I think, this is my opinion, and it's an opinion, but I think we should have this open mind, Caleb, when we're doing this, is using historical approaches, is that someone after Jesus is dead experienced what they thought was the Lord, Jesus, okay? That is not ridiculous. Even to the most staunch materialists, physicalist, atheist out in the world, we know that people experience their loved ones. It's not like the switch turns off as soon as they die and then, we just don't experience them anymore. So even from a completely natural point of view, you're still experiencing. I tend to think, I can't prove this, none of this is provable. It is just a working model that makes sense to me, is that someone experienced him and interpreted it, just like the video you sent me in a way, in like Messenger. Someone saw a light, or they felt, or they heard him, or who knows what the thing is, because they're close to him, and they go, he's not dead. He's actually alive. Then the Christology, this is where I think the mythology or the legend, that theology is all added on to Jesus.
Or maybe nobody had any such experience. We got to put that on the table too. Chris Komarnitsky, in his discussing the whole cognitive dissonance theory of Christian origins, suggests that this whole exaltation belief came about first as a result of the cognitive dissonance, and then people, either legitimately thought that they had experiences, or there were simply rumors and legends about him having appeared to others, as was very common at this time.
And that's an
very
analogy,
common.
Romulus, right?
When I talk about the sort of the Jewish template here in the Hebrew Bible and the belief in the resurrection of the dead, we have to remember this is Hellenized Judaism, right? So it would have been nothing to also sync this with popular ideas that were already in the atmosphere about gods like Romulus or Asclepius or Hercules, who were either raised from death or immortalized and exalted up to a higher place in the heavens or upon Mount Olympus, and appeared to others and had missing body tropes and so forth. So I think this Greco-Judaic synthesis of ideas kind of comes brewing together, and out of that comes Christianity and the belief in Christ's resurrection from the dead and exaltation. That's my model.
I want to get your last response to this. You can hang out if you want, and we can revisit this after the next calendar.
I don't want to hog up your other callers. By the way, I try to get some of my other Christian friends to come on to bash you to your face, right? Instead of
bash us, man.
Yeah, but I guess they're.
you want to give a
Yeah, I
response
guess.
to that now, or do you want to wait for?
I mean, I'll probably be doing a response later, but yeah, I actually don't disagree with a lot of that there, other than the plagiarism from Matthew Hartke. No, I'm kidding, but I do think that is if I were a skeptic, I would probably take that model. I'd probably take something closer to Dale Allison's model, but that's not completely different than what you all were saying. And I think there is the question of, did the experiences make them go back to the scriptures, or did the scriptures make them in the mindset to have these experiences, or
Right.
what have you?
That's a fair question.
And that's hard to do. And I say the same thing. I've talked to people like Chris Hinson about I think that's his name about this. In terms of like when we look at something like the appearances or like the empty tomb, like I don't know how we can say whether was it that, oh, Jesus is risen from the dead, therefore he's exalted, therefore we must have this body trope, or was it, oh my gosh, his body's gone? Well, if his body's gone, that means he's exalted, like the scripture says. Well, that must be. It's like which one caused the other is kind of the strange.
Who
thing.
knows?
Right.
I like what Robert M. Price said once. He said at the end of that intro where he's like, listen, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but neither do the apologist. And it was just like,
pretty
okay,
good.
I'm with you, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm with it. But I think it's important to be like you're acting, Caleb. And we call you apologist, but dude, you have earned a different title in my estimation, man.
Yes.
And I know it sounds like I'm using that in a derogatory term, but it just becomes like a trope of like, the way that when we're using this term, we ought to address this definition here. I think this is important. You're starting with your conclusion, and you're working to go to the ends of proving that starting point. That's typically what we're doing when we're saying, well, here's an apologist. They already know the truth. They know their answer. They're right. And now they're going out of their way to only try to prove that position's true.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the conclusion, but we're definitely not convinced of the miraculous position. And so we're poking holes, and you could say we're reverse apologists. We're simply poking holes using scientific methods. So it's like, hey, we're not buying this like we're not buying Romulus, like we're not buying any other figure. And so the defense is a critical method, if anything.
Absolutely. Before we get to the next, I see you down there, Masiha Muslim. You are about to be jumped on in 1 second. I just want to
You can keep Caleb if Caleb promises
Caleb, you're cool,
oath of silence.
Shut up,
As long
Caleb.
as I don't get jihaded, we'll be good.
Duran Childs says, Sophia and Asherah, the same goddess of wisdom. And I'll start with my. We're obviously none of us are like experts on this. We're just gonna give my opinion. The answer I think is clearly no, but they're both drawing from similar tropes. They're not the same goddess, because there's a word for wisdom in Hebrew, which is chachma, and Asherah has a different. She is like the mother. She's like a mother goddess figure. So there is a lot of, and she is identified with wisdom as well. I think there's something to be said about Proverbs 8 and Asherah. There's a connection there. That's as far as I'll go with it, but I'm not gonna say they're the same. When people say they're the same, that's like that. When you say the same, that means they're the same. You know what I mean? Like they're not the same, but I'd say that they're two different things drawing from similar tropes. What do you guys think?
I don't know if there's some genealogical connection between the goddess Asherah and Sophia. I really don't know.
Yeah. Thank you for the super chats. Interesting question. Definitely something that I like to talk about from here and there. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, Duran. Bro Joe 420 Cafe says, do you believe Japheth sacrificed his daughter?
Jephthah. I doubt it. But maybe. I mean, I really don't know. There is some history there. And that is another thing. I mean, I do think there are prophets. There are people who actually existed, Isaiah, Jeremiah. I do think that they do, even though there are debates on whether or not Isaiah existed or whatever. But we have found some good reasons to try and solidify that. As far as this particular Judges account, I think it's in Judges, if I'm not mistaken.
Judges 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time knowing if this actually happened at all, or if these are just creative narratives later that kind of.
I think it's a creative narrative with some historical practices behind it that probably inspired it.
Yeah, that's. I would go with that too. I agree with that. That's a good point.
But it does seem to imply, even in the narrative, that sacrifice a human is an acceptable thing to this author at wherever they are at this time writing this material. I don't know who they are, and they may not represent all of Israel or all of Judea, you know, but it still tells you that there's power in the sacrifice of a human, or at least that a human could make this kind of agreement with God. That's
thank you for joining the membership, Ricky Johnson. I appreciate that. I'm so glad seeing. I'm so happy to see that. Thank you. You really helped me out, and hopefully I can deliver and bring you some good content. And thanks again. And we have one more super chat before we get to the next challenger. Max the Confessor says, since you're open to talking to Adam Green, would you be open to debating apologists on the Crucible? Yeah. I don't know who those guys are, but absolutely. I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say names because I'm not a shit talker guy, but I've reached out to tons of Christians, like YouTube Christians, for like debating stuff, and they do not want. There's only a couple that have responded back. K-Dub True, who we were supposed to debate last week, but he got his wisdom tooth pulled, so we're gonna do it next month. And there's like five good names who I reached out to, who are like, yeah, we'll do it next month. Oh no, and we'll do it next month. Oh, and they're like, it's like they don't want to, but hey, I don't know. Maybe they're busy, so I'm not gonna. That's what I say. I'm not gonna make names or talk shit and get all like, get all childish on it. But I will say that it does seem like there's a lot of people who just don't want to have this discussion with me for whatever reason. But do you guys? By the way, Derrick, do you guys get the same? Or do you Derrick? You're not a debater.
I don't debate. Derrick doesn't debate. To me, it's like hitting your head off the wall because you're not. It's not. To me, I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in a discussion and a dialogue. I'm not here to see who's got the longest pecker. I mean, it's really not my goal.
I agree. Thank you for that super chat, by the way. And here we are with Masihi Muslims. The floor is yours. Tell us what you think.
Thank you for having me. Now
Hey, welcome.
the title of thank you. What I say is challenge these atheists. Now, what I have to say about the atheist is that an atheist is an A-grade theist. Why? Because he's reaching for the God within. Would you agree?
So say that last phrase because I didn't hear you very well.
An atheist is an A-grade theist.
An
For
A-grade
he's reaching for the God within.
So if I'm interpreting it properly, it's finding out oneself, so to speak. But that'd be an interpretation. I don't think all atheists would probably agree with. They would just say, look, I just don't believe there are any gods or supernatural or something.
This is just linguistics at this point. What do you mean by
But
God?
I do, it's kind of poetic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What do you mean by God? God could mean a million things when you're talking about yourself.
Yeah, because when I tell the story about my journey to my mom and my family and stuff, I tell them it's like I metaphorically scaled the hills and was like journeying, trying to find the truth about Jesus and the Bible and what's going on. And then finally I hit a mirror. I tell this analogy, like I hit a mirror and it was like you're face to face with what it is. It's you, dude. You're the one who's got the creative thinking. It's in your mind. It's your experience. And wow, experience is an amazing thing. But I like what you're saying there. I personally would say that, yeah, that would be, it's us and it's our perception, reflection of our experience and such upon the world that pretty much makes people, I would say, theist and believing in personal deities, things like that. Now, I don't want to categorize every theist because there's some that might approach this and actually be just on a sophisticated, route of trying to figure out what existence is and where all things come from. But most, I would say, that I've encountered are on the personal theistic approach, that there's a personal deity that in some way is, I don't know, part of their life or guiding them or instructing them. And I would say, yeah, it's the self. It's the people around me and it's myself, not this deity.
There's also an important distinction to be made between I am responsible for my own life and for my own actions, and I created and control the universe.
Yeah.
A massive distinction.
So would Would you agree to the statement that an atheist is an A-grade theist for he's reaching for the God within?
I can't agree with it because for the reasons I said earlier, the definition just simply is either, depending on if it's the colloquial sense of a lack of a belief in God or the more philosophical sense, which is I don't believe God exists. Like I actively do not believe in. I tend to be in that category, and I have my reasons. But yeah, I like what you said for my own personal sake. But as far as creator of the universe, like Derrick said, yeah, that's a whole different thing.
I would say on a certain level, it's as a metaphor for if someone's looking for purpose in life without God, then you can apply that statement. But that's not a universal statement for everybody. You can't say it for all atheists.
Now let's take. There are two approaches over here. Now let's take the Christian approach and let's take the Muslim approach. Now, if you read Genesis states that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now, hovering shows an act of unrest. And right after this verse, God goes into the process of creation. And on the sixth day, he creates Adam. And on the seventh day, he rests. Not that God gets tired, but the Spirit of God had a body to rest in, and that was the body of Adam, the first Adam. Right? Similarly, what we find in the Quran is that in verse in Surah 15:29, it states that God, which is Allah Ta'ala, he makes man out of clay. Now, once that is structure of Adam is complete, he does not utter anything like the angels to come and prostrate to this clay, but only when he puts his spirit into that clay that he commands all the angels and the jinns and everyone to come and prostrate to clay. So God as such, like when I said, like with an atheist is an A-grade theist for he's reaching for the God within. So God is within us. What we have to realize, the soul cannot worship. The soul cannot worship that which the mind cannot conceive. So when a mind cannot conceive, the soul cannot worship that which a mind can conceive. So what we have is we come up with images so as to conceive the Almighty. Now, those images could, in the Hindus, they have millions of such images. In Christianity, that image is Jesus. In Islam, that image, though they don't have any statue or such, but they do have the inscription of Allah. With Allah, they have written the name Muhammad, right? When we write Allah and Muhammad together, what we are trying is to image, to bring into our imagination, because the soul cannot worship that which the mind cannot conceive. So God rests within us. So go ahead, please.
Well, I was just going to say, so then if there's an atheist reaching from God from within, why call it God still if it's something completely different, if it's not Allah?
Look, I get what our friend is saying, and it's very esoteric and once again poetic, right? And I can back that because I do think that there's a subjective interpretive model here that could make sense. I find meaning and purpose in me, right? And you could say, that's because, Derrick, you found the spark. Let's just say you're a Gnostic. You found the spark of knowledge and you have found that within. Or let's say I'm esoteric I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian or whatever, and you're looking within. It's kind of esoteric. Even as a naturalist, man, I look at nature. I think my experiences, I enjoy those experiences. There's depth to them. There's deep meaning that comes to me. And so I think we all can try to come together without, oh, my tribe is this and my tribe is that. If we can understand and respect each other's positions, even if we disagree with the model in which one's trying to explain that world. That's just me. I mean, but this gets deep into kind of like, how are you perceiving reality and like all of these things. So
also there's a linguistics layer that we're talking about. What do we
Yeah.
define these words as? What I think that's the one thing that I would have to throw back at you is why even use these words then?
I do wish that atheists would be more patient to communicate these things and try to find common ground. I could poke holes, right, coming at it naturally, but it's like I think there's some value, as John Dominic Crossan wrote The Power of Parables, or others who see there's meaning in the story, there's meaning in the legend or in the narrative, kind of Jordan Peterson meta narrative stuff, right, which is still got meaning. While I'm highly critical of a lot of the stuff, I do want to find value in it as much as I can and not just be anti anyone else with different ideas. Bring as much as you can and try to learn it. And then maybe those who are coming at it with their particular perception can learn also not to be as fundamentalist, right? So it'll help them create a unity across tribes, if that makes sense.
No.
Didn't make any sense?
Now, an atheist, now he does not believe in God, but does he believe in a higher power? Like, let's say, do you believe that there's someone out there more intelligent than you?
No.
When you say someone out there, you're obviously not talking about humans in the world, but I would definitely say there's plenty of humans way brighter than me.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm talking of human. I'm talking of human, actually.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about humans?
Oh, so yes.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not the dullest blade in the drawer, but I'm definitely not the sharpest.
Okay, so let's go with that. The answer is yes. Then what do you say to that? What does that show us?
So basically, what it shows us that we do have something which is more intelligent than us. Now, let's talk of evolution. Like evolution, and let's say Darwin, and let's talk of survival of the fittest. Now, according to survival of the fittest, we should have not only two eyes, we should have eyes in the back of our head, because that increases our chances of survival. But why do we have somebody is like behind this design? Instead of having 4 or 6 eyes, we have only 2 eyes and a nose and beautiful lips and all the other stuff, the body, the design, everything. Who's behind this? I'm pretty sure it's not evolution. I do believe in evolution. It's not that I don't believe in evolution, but I say the evolution is a process. Now, whoever that most intelligent is.
Do you think there's a first mover? You think there's a first mover?
There is a first mover, yeah, of course.
Do you think that sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Do you think that the intelligence also designed like our windpipes to be close to where we swallow food so we can choke? Or I mean, I'm just trying to.
Wow, you're turning into you sound like an atheist over there. I thought
I'm being the devil's advocate right now. If you're going to talk about
is that a part of the design factor?
That's what I'm asking.
I'm asking you, is that a part of a design factor?
Well, I mean, if someone holds to Darwinian evolution, then they could say it's not design in the way that you think of it. It's like a blind watchmaker. It's a process that's preserving the good and taking out the bad, but it's not perfect, and you're going to get vestigial stuff that's left over, right? So it's not like it's this perfect optimal design. You're going to get some errors on the way, but it's improving.
I'll give you an example. There are some species that have horns that grow, and if it keeps growing, it curves and then it kills it.
The Babirusa, the pig, yeah.
It will literally go into its own head and kill it if it doesn't get cut. That was evolution that caused that somehow. So for some reason, evolution.
It will go into their own head and kill it.
He's the only
So
one.
basically, this is the problem with also religion, when they exceed their limit. It's the same thing which you applied. It's exceeding the limit. is what happens with religion when they go overboard, and that kills them.
I agree.
You know?
That's at least we can agree on that. Now there are 3 more people left after you, so I'm not trying to rush you out of here. But do you have any last things you want to get across before, and then we'll respond to it still too before we go?
I would, if you allow me. I just want, because I like writing poetry. So if you allow me, I could share a few verses. Not verses, I mean verses in the sense of my poetry. If that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead. As long as it's
And
not
I'm
like
going
5
to.
Is it like 30 seconds?
No, it's going to be. It's going to be small. It's going to be small.
Okay, all right, sure. Go ahead.
And it goes like this. All of us are from Adam, be black, brown, or white. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. No matter what our race and religion, walk side by side. No matter what our race or religion, walk side by side. Learning brings us together, teaches us to harmonize. It tunes our minds, our souls, our spirit, it tunes our minds, our souls, our spirit. I'm forgetting the other one. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that was great. I
That's
really
it.
appreciated that. If we had more time, I would continue. I enjoy talking with you. There are 3 people left. We have about 12 minutes left. So
Thank you so much for the time.
thank you. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it. It
much.
was good having you. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
All right.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you. All right.
I like the lyrics though. That was good.
That was
beautiful. Yeah.
So before we get to the next one, I apologize for the last 3. I took the link down because I don't have time to add anyone else. There's 3 left.
Right.
We're going to be a little bit more quicker, and I apologize for that. Just because both Derricks here have something they have to go on right after this, so I have to get them out of here.
I gotta edit my soul away.
Anyways, I'm going to read these out real quick too. Thank you, Max the Confessor, for the super chat. Reach out to Seraphim Hamilton on either the critical perspective on the Old Testament, anti-Hellenism, or comparative myth. As an apologist, he has his own theories and a theology degree. Thank you for that. If you don't mind emailing me that would help me remember. And that's a really good. I really appreciate that, because that'd be a good discussion to have. Thank you for that. Let's have Graham Pong, a good friend of the channel, who I think is gonna throw in some nice twists here, some new spins on theology. And I'm interested to hear where you're about to throw at us. How are you doing, Graham?
I'm doing pretty good, Neil. Thank you for having me on. Good to see you both, Derricks, and I didn't catch your name there.
Caleb.
Caleb. Oh, good to see you too, Caleb. Yeah, no, I got a little something new here. This is I've been working on, as you guys know, I've worked a little bit here and there, and this is going to roll out at least some of the nuts and bolts of my current working model on sort of Christianity. And I kind of got dragged into it through the back door because I was doing research on the Ninth Legion. That's the Lost Legion. And, there's a whole lot going on there. And one of the things that I noticed is there's a problem, it's from my perspective, with the Roman historical records, that you don't have a lot of firsthand contemporary historian reports. You have what the historians wrote about the previous times, but not really about their times. And it's really tough to find much at current reports for Domitian and Hadrian and Trajan. It's like everybody knows Trajan's great, but we don't really know exactly why he's so great. So it's like I started doing that one, and basically what I've pieced together is what I call the dynastic wave theory of Christianity, where you have Julius Caesar starting it, and Suetonius's 12 Caesars basically puts the seal on it for the first 12, and hence the number of 12 going in there. And one of the curious things with the 12 Caesars is we are missing the introduction and Julius's childhood up to when he's basically 13 in every single extant copy. And it makes you wonder, why those are all missing. So basically on the dynastic wave theory, I have the first one going through, and a lot of this I've been cribbing from Marcus Vincent and Jack Bull. And you have basically, it starts out with the Roman provenance with the Julius Caesar. You're lacking a resurrection there. You have the crucifixion. And you have a lot of the sayings of Julius Caesar with forgiving your enemies and all that one. You guys know a lot of that one. But then you have basically a switch with the Flavians, and that's where the whole resurrection comes in, because you have a spiritual Christ, and then you have the individuals that are basically channeling or manifesting the spiritual Christ, which were the Caesars. And Julius brought that in via when he went into took over Egypt, and with Cleo brought in the cult of the Ptolemies, which they had built off of Alexander, and that then became the imperial cult. And eventually with it blended together the imperial cult, Attis, Mithra, Sol Invictus, all of that ended up being in centuries later. But you basically had the Julio-Claudians, then you had the Flavians for a different level, then you had the Antonine, and then you had for a final one the whole Severin with Elagabalus, however you pronounce his name. Elagabalus. And after that one, you had all the crises, and then you had Constantine basically blenderizing everything in Nicaea and turning out the Orthodox Christianity. That's the basic outline I'm working on. How does that flow for you guys?
Oh wait, what is your? I get what you just said, but what's the conclusion you're saying? You're saying this is the
conclusion is basically you had one idea of Jesus under the Julio-Claudians, where each of the Julio-Claudians was more or less, picking in with the imperial cult. But that changed when the Flavians took over, and each of them put their own layering on it. You had different layers.
Okay.
Where they built upon each other, and they basically rewrote the previous dynasty to fit themselves. And then once the Flavians were out, the Antonines rewrote that one in order to you basically did an inversion where you kept the Christianity, but you dropped the previous dynasty's association with it. Yep. And by the time you did that 4 times, you only really had Christianity without any of the individual dynasties involved.
So I got a lot of questions. First, what? Because
I know, and we only have 8 minutes left. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just first of all, because
we can follow up on a different show if you want, Neil.
You know what? Yeah, because this is an interesting topic, and I have a lot to say on this. And if you guys want to say something real quick, and I'll hold my tongue, and Graham, I can have you on. We can do
it. Wouldn't do justice. It wouldn't do justice to go into detail over this, but I would just say that the reason I think that we're seeing Julio-Claudian dynasty, Flavian dynasty, I think this is competitive. I get what Graham's saying. I just personally wouldn't take this approach of saying the Jesus cult, the Jesus movement is the Roman provenance invented by the Caesars. I think it's in opposition to them. So I don't think that I take a bottom-up approach. Roman provenance takes a top-down, but there's similar overlap, which I think why people become Roman provenance position is because it's engaging. But that's a whole. I'd love to hear Graham actually spell out and go into the discussion with you at some point.
I just want to say one thing, and I'll let you respond, Graham, and then you and I will have a whole hour on this. I think this will be fun to do. But the last one thing I'm going to say is one of the things that, for me, I'm out of Roman provenance with this is when I read Pliny the Younger's letter to Pliny the Younger's letter to Trajan, actually. And when they're talking about Christianity, as if they've never heard of it. Trajan was the consul during the time of when the Flavians were in power. Trajan was one of the most powerful men in Rome during the Flavian dynasty. For him to not know about Christianity, unless this was some sort of fake letter, but then you got to say, why are they doing that? So what is your response to that? And then we can talk more about this later. Or if you want to just hold off on that, we can just have a whole hour on it. It's up to you, Graham.
That might be better because we had 2 more callers, and I do want to try to start editing soon.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Graham, listen, Graham.
Oh, I'm gonna say let's put it off
Okay.
for later to do justice on that one. No, absolutely. I like I said, I just wanted to throw that one on. Like I said, more hypothesis than belief. It's a working theory.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you know I love this topic. So we'll all right. I'll message you later tonight, and we'll set this up. This will be fun.
Sounds good, Neil.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'll bow out now.
Good
All
to
right.
meet you, Graham.
Good talking to you.
Good, Derek. Yep, good, Derek.
Thank you.
Good, Caleb.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, we have 2 more. We're gonna have to be quick. Just sorry about that. We have Jeffy KC. You are next, and then we have Ajikiam, and that'll be the last one. Whoa, where did everybody go? Okay, there we go.
How you doing?
The floor is yours.
All right. Would you ever say a Tesla car built itself?
No.
Okay. What about do you think your eyeball is more complicated than a Tesla?
Dear God. My eyeball?
Yes, sir.
Probably. I would say I'm not an expert on eyeballs, but I would probably say it's more complicated than yeah.
I guarantee you it is. So, this is a highly complex design. You would say, correct?
Well, we can trace the evolution of life going back to single cells to multi-cell, and then like we could see, like this is we're talking billions of years of time of simple adjustments happening every so often due to nature, selective what do you call it, what am I thinking? Selective
Natural selection.
Natural selection, yeah. And so what I'm getting at, and obviously I'm not an expert, so I'm just throwing my own opinion out there. What I'm getting at is we can see over time, very slowly process. It's not like somebody just came in one day and created. We don't see an eyeball just popping out of nowhere.
I'm gonna say no. You can't see over time because you can't see billions of years, and you can't.
Fossils. We can look at fossils.
Excuse me.
We can look at fossils.
Of course, the fossils don't prove evolution.
Shut this down.
You've never seen a part monkey, part giraffe, or any.
Because that's not how evolution works. That'd be the wrong way to describe evolution.
Okay,
Jeffy, may I? What you're doing is you're using a false analogy. Eyeballs and biological beings are not cars or houses. This whole, what you're appealing to, irreducible complexity, was destroyed in court. The Kitzmiller versus Dover Area School District. The intelligent design proponents went up against the evolutionary biologists, actual experts. It was presided over by a conservative judge appointed by George W. Bush. And even with such a judge who was conservative, he could not deny that the evidence in favor, the arguments in favor of evolutionary biology absolutely outweighed the irreducible complexity ID proponents' arguments.
And let me just say
destroyed. This is a dead argument. It's dead on arrival. I can't believe we're still hearing this.
Let me just throw something before he responds to that, because I want to go back to what you said about a monkey giraffe dual being born. What about evolution makes you think that's even possible? Evolution doesn't say that's even possible.
Well, everybody has their own form of evolution. So, what's your form of evolution? What do you say? You come from a? Do you say you come from sludge and then you turned into a fruit and then you turned into a fish? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's different. No, that's not what evolution says. That's not what evolution says.
Do you think that fruit gave rise to? Do you think that evolutionists think that fish came from fruit?
Do you think evolutionists are actually saying that?
Have you never seen the evolutionary chart?
Wait. No, hold on. Do you think that there are fossils of dinosaurs that have feathers on them?
That have feathers on them? That's
yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Wait. What evolutionary chart are you talking about that says that apples gave birth to some sort of animal?
Darwin evolutionary chart. Pull it up.
Can you show it? Can you give me a link for it? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Just look up
evolutionary
chart. You'll see it came from fruit and
no,
all.
That's a branch. It's not a line.
I don't have to see what you're looking at. I don't even have to see what you're looking at to already say that's not what evolutionists are saying.
Hey, we can go back forward. Let me ask you one more question. Quick question. How many people do you got online watching?
Well, 150.
150. You got 150 people, and Would you say you have a pretty big family?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you feel if you led your family and your loved ones down the wrong path, and God is real? There is
God.
hell. How would you feel?
Well, I didn't know. Well, like,
Oh no. You knew. Somebody told you. I told you. The Bible told you.
but I already looked into the Bible, and I already can pull hole. I can already poke holes in. For example, Adam and Eve living in 4004 BCE doesn't make any sense because we already know civilizations were thriving at that time. Right away, the Bible's done, throw it out the window already. You can't.
Okay. Well, you found tissue from dinosaurs, correct? We know that they found living tissues and skin and cells from dinosaur. So if a dinosaur was billions of years old, that would be disappeared. So you could say that we were billions of years old, but you
Hey
can't.
Jeffy, you win, man. You're destroying us. We
Hold on, I want you to answer the question.
Oh, let's take a second.
Can I just say though, Mary Schweitzer, who made that discovery of the blood cells, herself denies that is what the conclusion is. In fact, they actually replicated that in ostriches and were able to ionize that, which means that T-Rexes are in fact related to ostriches. So I don't see how that helps.
And the last thing I'm going to say before I got to let you go is that
Thank you.
evolution doesn't say that there's one evolutionary path, that this was born and this gave birth to this. There's millions of different paths of life that are the monkeys that are alive today are not giving birth to the humans that are alive today. Those are two different evolutionary paths. You understand?
Just answer me that one question. How would you feel if you found out you were wrong and there was a hell and you led all these people astray?
I wouldn't feel bad at all. I wouldn't feel bad at all because because I would then at that point God tricked me.
You know what? That's the way evolutions are. They only care about themselves.
Evolutions care about themselves.
I'd have a big old bucket of KFC and a smile.
Hey,
why? Listen, why would I feel bad when God is the one who creates the hell to begin with? When he's the one who is doing all this stuff, and he could have came out at any minute and said, "Hey, stop what you're doing. You're causing people to go to hell." Why doesn't he do that? Does it mean he wants us to go to hell? Why did he even create hell?
14 years ago.
He created hell for people that like you know what I mean, that want to live your sinful life. That's
really what's so sinful about my life?
Have you ever lied? Have you ever stolen anything?
Oh my God, bro, we got one more.
We
got another person.
The last thing I want to say. So you that lie and sin, you're allowed to go to heaven just because you decided that you believe in an event that happened in the past that may or may not actually happen. You're going against all scientific reality of physics and saying like man rise from the dead, and you decided to believe in that, and therefore your lying and your sinful life is okay.
Caleb disagrees with you, and so does Origin. We're all going to the same place in the end, so just cut it out.
Einstein disagrees with you. Einstein says there is a God.
Yeah, he wasn't talking about the Judeo-Christian God. He was a pantheist in the vein of Spinoza. So you obviously have no flipping idea what the hell you're talking about.
Einstein didn't care what you believed in. Einstein didn't.
You're clueless.
Hey, but he believed in God, correct?
He didn't believe in the Judeo-Christian, a personal God. He stated explicitly, I do not believe in a personal God. I believe in the God of Spinoza, which was tantamount to saying God is the universe, not God as a personal being who's going to fry you like a bucket of chicken if you don't act right.
Yeah, that's a big.
You're saying this shows us that you are clueless. You have no idea what on earth you're talking about. Why are we wasting time with this individual?
We will find out.
All right,
we will.
By the way, everybody, this was 13 years ago.
I do got to get going to the next one because they do got to go. So thank you for your time, Jeff. Next, go ahead.
Thanks for stopping by. You're an idiot.
I could be wrong. You can't.
You are.
Have a great. God bless you. Jesus is.
Yeah. Piss off.
All right, last one. The floor is yours.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
Hey.
Hi. So, I want to say something and also have a question. God can be personal. There can be a monotheistic idea of God. A person can believe in God. But I think the problem arises when we give him a name or limit him to a culture or build a religion around it. So my question to you is, what is your problem with a personal monotheist God? And I want you not to consider the religion that has formed around it.
So you're talking about like a deistic Spinoza?
No, deist is something that God doesn't work in the world. You know, he's like a distant thing.
So
not deism. It's like theism.
just to hear you right. You're talking about being an theistic God that is personal, you said?
Yeah, a theistic
Okay,
God.
but not Islam or Judeo-Christianity.
No. Is there a problem? Yeah. Do you have a problem with such a God?
I don't necessarily have a problem with people believing in that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just don't. I hope that person also is open to scientific advancements, and they're not going to try to conflict with that stuff. Let people be scientists and not try to say, "Well, I figured it out, so stop what you're doing." That's all I would say.
Yeah. That's he would encourage science, human rights and stuff, but he believes in a personal God, a God who works in this world. He believes there is one God, a pure monotheist, and he doesn't believe in the existence of other deities, So I just wanted to know
I have no
your
problem.
opinion about it.
Zero
I have no
problems.
problem with that. Derrick has no problem with that whatsoever.
I don't know why they would have a problem.
I don't care if they believed in many. I don't care if they're polytheist. I don't care if they're pantheist, if they're panentheist, if they're monotheist. I don't care if they're deist. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if people are Christians. I don't care if people are Muslims. I don't care if people are Jews. I don't care if people are Hindus. I don't care. I don't care if people are religious.
I don't care.
I really want to kind of clean up the streets, ethically speaking, with getting people to get away from what we just heard on the YouTube channel and the previous caller, because these people steer and guide. They have voting rights. They have privileges to be able to change and kind of cause things to go in a direction that they let a book that is dated enforce the way they think about the world around them, whereas we should be recognizing the kind of genre. Find meaning and value in your text. Cool. Let's not be radicals. Let's not be so bad that we're not getting with what we have learned and ignoring knowledge and the evidences that we now know about things over an ancient text. And there's a lot of dishonesty that happens there. So I come across like that sometimes because I do have an axe to grind, but I want people to hear it from me. Caleb Jackson, for example, I always joke, you're my favorite Christian apologist. He's really a friend of mine, and he really disagrees with me at the end of the day. And I really disagree with him, but I just want to pour my heart out and say that because I think it's important people know that.
That was a good that's a highlight clip right there.
Yeah.
It neither breaks my leg nor picks my pocket whether a man believe in 20 gods or no gods. Thomas Jefferson.
Wow.
So, and I want to ask you this thing, do you think it's a better strategy to face atheists saying there is no God and supporting science and stuff, liberal stuff and things like that? Or do you think it is better to tell them that you believe in God, a more merciful God, it's like a mirror image of their God, but without religion, who supports science and advancement? Do you think that is a better strategy than saying right to their faces that there is no God and, they might think you are hedonistic. They might have a negative view of you.
And this will be the last question because I know
that's it. Yeah.
Did you get that completely?
I don't think any of us bothered to say to anyone in their face that there is no God. In fact, I don't think any of us take that kind of a hardline position.
Never.
If you asked me what I thought, or if I'm saying, hey, look, I don't believe there is a God. Yeah. I have no motivated.
I've never went out and evangelized atheism or religion not being true, or even like deism or anything, or I've never. The only time I've ever done that was when I was a Christian. Now that tells you something right there.
But I didn't quite. That's why I asked you. I didn't really completely get the two options. So
the reason I asked was that when you say that there is no God to a theist, he might think you are an hedonist or a druggie or stuff like that. The common things that they associate atheists with.
Okay. Wow. So if that's how they think, that's the problem. It's not us.
Wait, so is that really a common connection?
In fairness, they were only druggies when they were Christians.
I mean,
so I guess that's.
I'll be honest. From my accent. No. See, from my accent, you can get me that I am from an Indian subcontinent, right?
Yeah.
Here we associate atheists with hedonists, druggies, alcoholics, and stuff.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah, that would be a problem, in my opinion, on the theists that are thinking that way, because either they aren't aware, so that there's an ignorance in the society that thinks this way, or meaning, I don't mean it derogatory, I mean it like they just don't know how that works. And so there seems to be some propaganda among them and a stereotype that only atheists do drugs and are bad people and outcasts. They live as though they have no God, which means they have no meaning or purpose. That's something in there, I would say they would need to educate and broaden their scope. Kind of like if we were doing what you heard earlier, Adam Green came on, started talking about Judaism, psyop, covert, conspiracy to all these things, right? And there is some serious, rabbis out there that do some of this stuff, but like universalizing it, right? I would want to pick apart every single thing he said to try and really get people looking at the details, because then you're not going to see this overarching like systematic conspiracy for 2,000 years that's been going on. It doesn't work. That I think would be the best answer I could give you, is they aren't aware of maybe atheists that are good people, that are humanists, that want good for society. I guess that would be my answer. I mean, I don't really.
Yeah. If you want to give, we got to go after this, but I'll let you respond last time for this, whatever you feel. That was a good answer, though. I think I agree with Derrick. I have nothing to add.
Yeah, just because we don't believe in God doesn't mean that we all act like psychotic sociopaths like Caleb Jackson.
Yeah.
It's kind of fascinating that people actually think that atheism is equal to nihilism and all these different, like, completely separate things than just having the lack of belief in the religions that are out in the world today. That's all it is. There could be drug addict atheists. There also could be brilliant, pious, really good acting, donating to charity atheists, which I know exists because I know a few people like that. So it's like that. I just think that's interesting how that comes off. But thanks for telling us about that. It's interesting.
Yeah. In reality, I think most atheists are just there doing their own podcasts with their beards, with their yellow hats, trying to type on their keyboards about why the New Testament isn't true. That's my experience of them, and those are the worst people. But generally they're pretty good. So,
yeah. Any last thoughts? And by the way, how do I pronounce your name?
Ajivikam.
Ajivikam. Okay. Any last thoughts, Ajivikam?
That's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for letting me. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I've had a great time, and I know these guys got to go. So that being said, links in the description for Derrick's channel, Atheologica. He just put out a video not too long ago. Let's see, do I have it up still? No, I don't. But anyways, it's in the description, and I'm sharing it to my community tab right now, the new video about Romulus. And so thank you for that. And with that being said, you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained